Greetings viewers, Eric the Car Guy with the Ford Fairmont. And what I have today, or what I'd like to address today, is what appears to be an exhaust leak right here at the back of the turbo. In fact, I can take this little blanket off rather carefully, and it's leaking out of this clamp and along the side here. I'm going to replace this clamp, but here's what I think the issue is. This whole engine will vibrate and do this from time to time. This connection is connected to the exhaust, which is pretty tight in there. And I think what's happening is this is just vibrating and just allowing the exhaust to come out here. So my solution, a piece of flex pipe that I've been sort of debating, where does it go? Up here feels like it's too close to the turbo and it'll get too hot. Right there is right where my O2 sensors are. I don't want to put it where a bend is. I actually have a section of exhaust right here that perfectly fits this. So hopefully this will absorb any vibrations and eliminate this exhaust leak. That's my hope anyway. But there's going to be a little cutting, a little welding in order to make this happen. And I have a new clamp. Here is the section of pipe that I'm looking to replace with a piece of flex pipe. It's almost the exact same length, but it looks like this has been tagged once, and I'm glad I got two V-band clamps. So I'm going to take this right now and remove this whole piece. Let me see what we're looking at. There's a lot of movement there. And there's what I'm after. Looks like my flex pipe is going to fill this gap perfectly. And some of this stuff is angled. I'm sure that's for a reason. You can clearly see it was leaking. Now you see the access to the clamp that I made. This wasn't here originally. This was just one continuous piece of pipe. I designed this so that this clamp would be right here so you could access it, so you could remove that upper piece of pipe. I'm going to remove this clamp now since I'm redoing this whole section. I want the exhaust to be in the exact position I want it when I do my welding, so that when I put it all back together, it goes where I want it and it stays there. Otherwise, you could end up with squeaks, rattles, leaks. You don't want to do that. Take your time, look at every joint. Make it work. Now I think we have a clearer view of that leak. You can really see it there. Now we'll get started on my fix for this. I have gone in and cleaned up the soot and all the stuff that was on these wires and all that. But I've been just sort of looking at this problem. And I think a lot of it stems from the fact that the exhaust is not supported properly. And just thinking about this pipe that runs from here down into this area, I see that it's pretty much been riding on top of this pipe. So the entire time, this has been supporting the exhaust going down through here. I don't want that. I might end up putting a hanger right on the bottom of that on the body. So that supports all the pipes going up to that portion, and I no longer have to worry about it riding on the top of that header coming out of the side of the engine. Then I want to make sure to support the rest of the exhaust going back from here, because right now the only thing supporting it is that hanger. I want to use a legitimate exhaust hanger in here somewhere to try to hold the rear part of the exhaust exactly where I want it as well. So I'm going to take an exhaust hanger that these are weld on, and I'm going to figure out a place on the body where I can mount this rubber piece here, and then I'm going to have this welded on to this as in addition to having this flex pipe. It looks like this exhaust system was designed to always have something of an offset. You see that? So that's flat on the table. So it's not level. It's not level on just one end. The other end is level. So that means if I put this in something and I cut it, I'm basically going to have this angle sort of baked into it. So I have to find a way to either, do I need this angle on this? Do I cut it straight and remove the angle altogether, or what? I'm not really sure how to go about this part. Step one is going to be to reinstall these pipes. Once I've got everything exactly where I want it to be, then I'll come in and weld my new parts and cut everything. I'm not trying to tighten anything down just yet. What I'm doing, or what I'm trying to do, is I'm trying to get the alignment between this pipe and this turbo as perfect as possible. So I don't want the pipes to be off one way or the other, and I don't want them to be sort of not connecting properly. I want them to be flush and I want them to be mated together squarely. You know, since I'm almost positive from here, I'm going to be welding on a bracket. I'm just going to remove the wrap down here so I can get to the pipe and weld it. What's nice about this particular pipe is the flange that I used has an insert, so when you put the pipe on, it centers itself. As far as this clamp, I don't mind tightening this one all the way, because I don't feel that, well, I didn't see any leaks at this joint. I feel that it's coming down and pointed exactly where I want it. I want to tighten it up on the engine because I don't want to move it around like this. I want to try to make it flush, and I want to know exactly where it comes out down here. Tightening up any one of these clamps for the final time is I'll tap on it, any of these V joints, and what I'm hoping is as it rotates that it centers things up when I do this. It seems to be fairly effective, but you don't want to hit it too hard because you don't want to damage these threads. In fact, you're probably best off putting a nut on the top of this and just hitting the nut, or using a rubber mallet or something else. I think I've got a brass one somewhere, but it's not here. There, I like that better. And what that does is as it rotates, I'm hoping it draws things up so that they're in alignment. Yeah, that feels solid. I can already see a difference. This used to almost lay up against this valve cover a bit more. It didn't have as large of a gap as it does now. So I'm really liking the positioning of this pipe. Also, I hope you can see that, at least to me, feels like it's in pretty good alignment. The next step, I'm going to look for a way to secure it to the body so that this is repeatable. All I have to do is bolt it up and it's going to be here and stay here. And part of the reason removing and installing this portion of the exhaust is so important to me is, as you've probably already noticed, the only way to access these spark plugs is by removing this pipe. In fact, that's the reason why I cut this pipe where I did and put the clamp down there. Well, that's another reason. One reason was to make removing this pipe and installing it easier, but the other was also to make it so that I could access these plugs when I did do that and only have to pull out this top section instead of all that stuff underneath. I want to make sure with my new hanger, this is what this is, I took it out of the bag, is that I'm able to remove this from its rubber mount. That way I'm able to remove the pipe and everything, because the pipe's going to be welded to this piece permanently. So I have to make sure that wherever this bolts to the body is someplace to where I'll have the maneuverability to come in and remove that along with the pipe that it's attached to. To make things easier, I sprayed a little silicone spray. Now, you don't have to use the WD-40 brand, just any silicone spray down inside these rubber parts. I find silicone spray is excellent for lubricating things like this. You can also use penetrating oil. Now that I know where this one's going to be, I want to make sure that I know where this one's going to be. And I suspect it's twisted a little bit, so I'm going to have to support the muffler in some way to get this part exactly where I want it, so that I can also add one of these hangers to the body. So I use this carpenter's clamp on the rear fender to hold the tailpipe exactly where I wanted it, which is about the width of my finger away from the inner fender. That's what I'm using for my measurement there. Now over here, I spent my time trying not only to get the muffler even, but you notice that it's perilously close to the torque arm there. So I wanted to make sure I had, again, about a finger's width in between. Additionally, I don't want to push it all the way up into the floor. I left it hang down just a fraction of an inch. Now, I believe I have this pipe in the exact position where I want it when everything's all tightened down. In fact, you can see how this coat hanger also reflects that because I put it on when the exhaust was up there. Yeah, I'm rethinking this whole thing with the flex pipe. And the reason for that is because if I install a hanger on this pipe and I install a hanger on this pipe, putting a flex pipe in between, I don't know how much good that's going to do other than to take up any slop that happens in between this joint. And whenever you're dealing with a vehicle that's highly modified like this, you pretty much have to make it up as you go. This is interesting. So this is the pipe that was there, and it has the offset on it. And you can see It's weird. And no matter what, I'm kind of looking at a deficit of pipe. This one this side I think is also offset. So keeping the offset, I don't think is a bad thing. I'm gonna attach this front one like this. I'm actually gonna put this clamp here, like that, so it's tucked in, and run it over that way. So I'm gonna hold that one in like that. And I'm not so concerned about removing the pipe or being worried about removing the pipe because I can just unbolt it. And I took that same philosophy back here, same deal. I'm just gonna tech screw it for now. And that's the cool thing about tech screws, is great temporary things that you can do, or permanent it if you wanted to do that. But these will give me holes that I can use to locate later on, where I can do like actual inserts, like riv nuts in here, and the same with up front. But for now, I'll do this later on when I have a lift, maybe. I'll do this with some riv nuts. That's one. And that's the second one. And this one, I'm going to support in the front like I have here. This wire is loose. I'm really looking forward to cutting this once I've got this all secured. But I'm going to go and recheck everything back there. When I'm done, don't be thinking I'm going to leave these long things on here. I'm going to cut them off. But again, positioning is everything here. So I'm going to go back and recheck the muffler clearance and the clearance in the back with the tailpipe, now that I've moved this up a little bit, and see if I'm happy with where everything is. Same with this. I'm going to go back over all the stuff and make sure that it's exactly where I want it to be before I lock it down. I'm coming in here now to mark where I want to cut these rods. I want to try to give myself as much ground clearance as possible. Anything sticking down can get caught on stuff, and that's not cool. I think I'm pretty happy with where that is. Right about there. I once again went back over everything and made sure everything was in position where I wanted it. I also cleaned the pipe where I'm going to be welding so that that's ready to go, and that's going to be the final answer for that. And with this one, it was also, I'd almost forgotten, I'm going to have to be able to get a clamp up in here. So I wanted to make sure that I had enough headroom in order to do that, because it is pretty close here. This front one, same deal, got it cut. Just going to come in and do the weld just to hold it where I want it to be. When my friends at Flowtech Exhaust weld on exhaust hangers, they often take a socket on the end of an extension and put that on the end of the hanger as they weld. As that heats up, they're able to bend it around the pipe, thus getting more coverage. Laying on the ground, I wasn't really in a position to do this, quite literally, but I would have if I could have. Took a minute to get the welder dialed in, but we got there. Isn't going anywhere. Same with this. This stuff is solid. So finally, you're going to be here for this momentous occasion. Be able to just dink. And that janky thing is now gone. Now there's still some hitting of the muffler over there. And I don't think I need to flex pipe for here, because this can still move to some degree. Maybe I should put another hanger up over there. Maybe that's what I should do. I did the exact same thing over here. I went to the front of the torque arm, just went right on there. I have just a hair's worth of clearance, like a zip tie. I usually go by a zip tie, it's like 50 thousandths. Between the muffler and the floor. But as far as movement, like none. It is on there solid. So I feel like I have all the exhaust locked down, both front and back. I'm very happy with this.
This is the most secure this exhaust has ever been. I'm very confident that putting this piece in here is going to make it awesome.
I've made some decisions. Now that everything under the car is all locked down, the exhaust from there back is good, the exhaust from here up is good. We just got little piece there to connect in the middle, which I was originally going to use this piece of flex pipe. I'm not doing that anymore because I really don't see the need. You saw how much movement I had on that exhaust, which is virtually zero. Putting this on would be kind of a waste of money and time. Instead, what I'm going to do is, given that there's like a 1/2 inch gap where this goes in, I'm going to come in here, cut this guy in half, and then I'm going to reposition it underneath the car so that it's exactly where I want it to be. Then, hopefully, maybe this will slip over the outside. Nope, doesn't look like it's going to. I may have to run to my exhaust shop to take whatever piece of this I cut off to fit as sort of a spacer in between here, to have them expanded on their expander so that it fits over like a sleeve. I'm going to stick this up in here and weld a piece of this onto this to bridge the gap. I'm going to admit that that was probably not the best way to cut this. I probably could have done it much quicker with like a hacksaw, but it kind of doesn't matter how clean this cut is because I'm going to be putting a sleeve in this area in between here. But yeah, I don't recommend the bandsaw for this. That is a much better way to cut pipe. Although the other piece was like really good stainless. This is also stainless, not as good as what I just cut. For now, before I head to the exhaust shop, because just like I thought, that's the same size. They're both 3-inch, but they have an expander where they can open this up and I can use this as sort of a coupler between these two. And the idea is to get these both mounted, put this in between, tack it into place, take the whole thing off, weld it all up, put it back on, we're done. I also have to remove the short pipe down here so I can rewrap it. But before I do any of that, clean up all the stuff on the outside of this so that it's ready to assemble. The more I weld stuff, the more I come to find that clean metal is what you want to weld with. I've prepped this piece of metal out with that in mind. So everything is all clean, there's no slag or anything, so everything slips and falls into place. Back from the exhaust shop, and that's Flotek exhaust on 42 in Cincinnati, and they are awesome. Anyhow, they did me a favor and they expanded this piece of pipe so that now it fits over both of these pieces. Next step is going to be to go under the car, attach these two end pieces with this in between, get it into perfect position, tack weld it into place, take it off, weld everything together, put it back on. Both of my clamps that I had on here were damaged. So I'm going to install a couple of new ones. Well, this one's new to this anyway. I'm going to try to angle everything so that I'm able to access the fasteners for the exhaust. If I have to do a clutch on the ground somewhere, I'm preparing for that. I fiddled with this for a while to try to get it lined up the way I have it now. So it's because of these offsets on these clamps. And I suppose I could have just gone in and just put a new piece of pipe in with some new clamps, but these were already mated together and I just kind of wanted to stick with that. Now that the sleeve is positioned and everything else is ready to go, I'm just going to come in here and put a couple of tack welds here and here. I'm also going to put like a weld here to indicate that this is the bottom. That way when I reinstall this pipe, I know that this is the front and this is the bottom. Well, I am pleased with that. And I'm checking this now because once I weld it, I'm going to have to grind it off if I want to fix it. I'm also going to remove this lower pipe so that I can rewrap it. I think I should have went in this way instead of coming in this way. And that's my bad. Gonna leave it for now. Just like that is all I would really need to get the transmission out if I was going there. And this could, well, yeah, exactly that. I'm going with that. With this off the car, I'm gonna take the opportunity to fix that weld a little bit, make it look a little better. And then I'm going to wrap it. I still have all the old wrap and everything up there. It's not my best work, but I believe it's sealed. And there's the mark that's going to be top front for this. So I know that this goes towards the front and this mark goes towards the bottom when this gets installed. The guys at Flowtech Exhaust taught me this, the same people that helped me out with expanding that pipe, is instead of leaving these welds just bare like this, they spray them with this VHT flame-proof like header paint or exhaust paint. And this helps this from rusting in the future. So it helps protect it. And I'm going to do that to the other joints that I've done as well. I'm obviously going to wait for this paint to dry before I put the wrap on. And here's a pro tip. If you're going to be painting and it's cold like it is in my shop right now, like less than 40 degrees, I take this stuff, I leave it inside the house, and when I go to use it, I'll bring it out. That way the paint is warm. In fact, I put this over the heat register before I even brought it out. So you might want to take that into consideration with your paint because temperature is important. Let's see if we can get this wrapped up again. And this is right underneath the floorboards. So wrapping it, I believe, is a good call. So I don't want these little metal things sticking up that can basically cut the holy heck out of me. Whenever I'm working and doing stuff, I always have that in mind so that I don't go back later, go to grab something and end up at an emergency room visit. Those are expensive. There it is. Completed exhaust is installed. New patch pieces in there. And this doesn't move at all. I mean, it is very happy where it is. I guess I'm going to put the other turbo cover and everything back on this, drop it down, start it up. Well, actually, I'm not going to drop it down before I start it up. I'm going to start it up like this so that I can feel around for any leaks. If there's major ones, I'll deal with them. If they're just little pinholes, I'm not going to worry about them.
Engine doesn't sound great, but that may be because it's over to its side, but I don't feel anything coming out of the turbo. Everything under here looks and sounds good. I think it's time to let it down, put the wheel on, go out for a test drive. Before I let this down, I just want to comment on where I placed my jack stand. I didn't place it in the traditional spot. I placed it up here on the K-member, which held it up just fine, holds the engine and everything in. But I did that so that it would give me the access to the exhaust that I was working on. You can do that, just make sure you find someplace secure in order to put your jack stand. Viewers, I'm calling this a success. Just listen. It just sounds like it's all coming out the pipe. I'm very happy. Seems to be all good under here too, and quiet. The leaking that you do hear is coming from the exhaust cutout. That will always leak. If you have one of those, it will leak. All right, viewers, here's where the leak was before. There's no leak or anything coming out of that now, which is what I set out to do during this entire video. So success, finally eliminating exhaust leaks on the Ford Fairmont. It's quieter, it feels faster, it's always awesome. I don't know if I could be any happier with this, and maybe it's just me, but it feels like it's got more power. And that may be attributed to the fact that that leak at the back of the turbo was before my air fuel sensor, and that's going to mess up the air fuel mixture. It'll be more accurate if there's no leak there. It was actually running rich before because it thought it was running lean because of that exhaust leak. That said, I'm very pleased. to hopefully finally have the exhaust issues solved on the Fairmont, but project vehicles are a never-ending story, believe me. If you want to see more videos on the Fairmont, check the description. There's a link to the whole series as far as building this, and I am also bringing back some of the missing footage from videos that, well, never got aired. One last thing, if you have automotive questions that didn't have anything to do with a turbocharged Fairmont, there's a link in the description to EricTheCarGuy.com, which is where I ask you go. Aside from that, thank you so much for watching today. Be safe, have fun, stay dirty. I'll see you next time.